All right. Welcome, everybody. This is Paul Whitkay. If you haven't met me, I'm founder of the Alliance of CEOs. And I'm excited for this next edition of our Alliance Roundtables on how CEOs are using AI. And I just want to give a little update. We always ask on how many are actually using AI to drive results in your business. And since we started this series in May of 2024, so over the last 70, 18 months, we've grown from 70% to 95% of you folks are using AI in your businesses in some way. So I'm not sure who the 5% are, but it's definitely trending up. And the percent that are using AI and driving and receiving some impactful positive results went from 50% 18 months ago to 69%. So it's getting there. It actually, last month, I think it was 74%. So that growth results is slowing a little bit. But I'm excited about today for a number of reasons. One, I always learn here, and thank you for joining us. And I'm going to turn it over to our moderator, Matthew Swanson, founder and CEO of Silicon Valley Software Group and Motion ERP, which is developing AI agents. And I'm especially excited to welcome one of our very, very first members, who I don't know if you know Rand or not, but Rand, you attended your first Alliance meeting 29 years ago this month.
Wow, that's a long time ago.
Yep, and I remember you were also the first one to bring a training dog to an Alliance meeting. So anyway, with that, I'm looking forward to hearing from you and all your thoughts on what's happening out here in the world. So Matthew, with that, take it away.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Paul. Yeah, so last session, we covered the state of AI adoption in the enterprise. We showed which departments and use cases enterprises are allocating their AI budgets against. We also learned that most of us are much further ahead than the MIT research headline that showed 95% of enterprises are not getting ROI with their enterprise with their AI. So, let's keep on collaborating and beating that benchmark. For today's session, we're going to focus on a universal use case of using AI to chat with data. One of the reasons I'm so excited about this topic is it applies to everyone here. We all use some form of spreadsheets or analytic tools to make critical decisions about our businesses. And it's never detailed enough or timely enough. And so now we're going to discuss how Gen AI allows us to rethink what's possible. We have a few slight adjustments to the format. Our guest speaker has an excellent showcase of different AI use cases. He's going to take us through, after which we'll break out into smaller groups where we'll all be asked to brainstorm a use case of chatting with our data. So we're really going to try to put this into practice. When we reconvene, each moderator is going to select one use case from the group for Rand to live fire on how that example would work with Gen AI. So this is a great opportunity to hear firsthand from Rand on your use case. A little bit about Rand. So we're excited to welcome Rand here today. He's a veteran technologist, having written over 70 best-selling books on technology, as well as advising multiple White House administrations on key technology disruptions. Through his company, Convergent Computing, Rand has helped over 200 companies use generative AI to chat with their data, which is the topic he'll be sharing with us today. So Rand, so glad to have you here with us. I know you've prepared a jam-packed presentation, so we want to get right into it, and please take it away.
Perfect. Thank you, Paul, Matthew. Appreciate the opportunity, and thank you everyone for joining today on this session. So I have a handful of slides, but I'm really going to be talking more about use cases and showing stuff. So hopefully I can show you more than talk about things. But the topic is around how CEOs are using AI to unlock insights from the data. And it's real world AI. And I was glad I participated in last month's session. It was great to be able to hear the use cases folks are doing. But I still find that a lot of organizations are using AI in a very limited manner. And so I'm going to try to expand that out. 200 customers, 24 industries. I'm going to kind of hit the highlights of what we're using AI for. Got a slide on, who I am and what I do, but I've written books and I've advised organizations and I've done this tech thing. But really, when we start looking at AI, the old way of doing chats and stuff was the old Google search. Google search gives you stuff like, tell me about the writings of John Paul II, and it pulls up Wikipedia and you can go down there. With AI, now it gives you the answer. If you ask the same question, tell me about the writings of John Paul II, it gives you an answer and it gives you a handful of content. Here's an exciting thing about the right-hand side. That's not just public ask ChatGPT or Claude the question. We have built the AI environment for the Vatican. So one of our customers that we've built out the environment, we have 54 million journals currently ingested in the Vatican's private library that we're chatting with information. So when we ask it a question about the writings of John Paul II, we actually have handwritten memos that he's written that we've transcribed through AI to be able to chat with that. We have documents that was written by Pope Francis, stuff that Pope Leo has written. We were in Rome a few weeks back, and we've been scanning these large documents, these books, handwritten by monks with gold leaf that are over 1,500 years old. That we're scanning that content, translating the Latin, so that way it can be a search. So when we really look at chatting, it's not generically chatting with what we typically say is a public instance, like chatting with ChatGPT, going out and asking a question. Students, cheat on writing their papers. They don't have to read a book. They can just ask a public instance, or I can ask it something like, create me a menu. What am I going to create, and give me a couple of different recipes to be able to cook something for Halloween. That's the public instance. What we're doing is we're doing private instances. And this is where at least the first step is to be able to get value out of AI is connected to internal data. And for the last 4.5 years, we have taken an AI instance in a private environment, turned it inwards to corporate data. So we can chat with documents like we do for the Vatican, and we can answer questions directly derived from that information ingested. And the interesting thing is when you point it to your own information, it's not hallucinating. It's not providing you generic answers on something it found out of Wikipedia or off somebody's website. It's that the information is coming out of your content and your information. So I'm going to go through a handful of different use cases. AI employee support. So we usually have an intranet in organizations. And when an employee wants to ask the question, how many vacation days do I get off in a year? In the past, it went to the big, 60-page, 100-page company policy document. The person has to sift through it. Well, just like when you do ChatGPT, it summarizes it. A private AI instance goes into your intranet and grabs the information, shows you the whole snippet on the right-hand side, and I can right-click the original file, and I can see the full 100-page PDF. But it's pointing the information into internal corporate information. So that's a very basic part of what we're doing for AI. We're working with legal departments to be able to chat with AI, and how we're using AI in legal is organizations, unfortunate thing happens is you get sued, and you now want to be able to figure out, okay, what's this lawsuit about? What's the deadlines? What's the person's beef? What's the issues that are involved? We take AI one step further of not just summarizing this case, but to be able to figure out, hey, have we been sued on this before? How did we settle it? What were the issues involved? Did we go to outside counsel for support? So we tie the legal information into the entire operations of the legal business. And we're working with 8 of the top 20 law firms in the country to be able to do this for them as well, is that if somebody brings in a case saying, I've been with another firm for 2 years, I have all these documents, I want to see if your firm will take me on and get me to a win. The firms usually spend 3-4 days processing information to be able to figure out if they want to take on a case. We take that content, we ingest it into an AI system. Instead of 3-4 days, within 1 to 2 hours, we can come back to say, we've done this case before. We've had 9 different cases. We've won 8 out of the 9. Partner attorney Jones is the one who's tried these cases. He's our expert on it. We could determine that's in the Southern District of New York. How have we fared in the Southern District? Oh, we know that Judge Smith is the judge. How we fared against Judge Smith. So law firms are now within 1 to 2 hours determining whether they want to take on a case, whether they've been successful at it before, what evidence has proven that they've had that success, how they've gone in each district court to be able to find the information. So not simply let me write a brief or let me summarize the thing, but digging into data that the organization has to be able to determine success, failure, opportunities. Every organization has an accounting system. And today, when we put in information to the accounting system, invoices and payments and things of that type, rarely do we pull the information out. By simply pointing AI to an accounting system, if you painted your building 10 years ago and you want to paint it again, which vendor did that? Yeah, how much do we pay for that? Or we painted one of our buildings last year. We want to paint a new building this year, but we didn't like the firm that we used last year. Who are the 3 firms we went to bid with? Maybe we'll select the second and the third firms to bid this new building. So you farm your accounting information to be able to figure out who, how much, when. You could have bid information, other stuff inside this that adds content to that contractual information. So we're doing this with a lot of organizations of not using the accounting system just to enter in invoices and do accounts receivable payments, but to go through the whole process of what these vendors are doing and who do we like and how much did it cost, simplifying the process of who do we use next time. We work in retail, pointing this into retail systems. What are the best hiking shoes for cold weather under $100? And then we say, okay, for the venture grade trail shoes, is there something similar at the $80 price range? Or I'm willing to pay maybe $100. How much, what do I get that's better? How are these in the snow? How are these in walking a trail within my neighborhood? AI in the past in retail required somebody to summarize the information to be able to put it in so you can ask the questions. AI now has the ability of going through and summarizing this information just off of a product spec sheet. So the product spec sheet has all this information. The marketing content from the vendors have all the information. So instead of having somebody sit there and type in and summarize the information, is that by going to the spec sheets, the documentation, it's able to find the information. We're doing this with a heating ventilation vendor, where they're inserting in documents and documents and documents of spec sheets, maintenance guides, things of that type. So that way, you can ask a question: which product fails the most frequently? How much is the cost of repair? Because that's one of the things as we start making decisions. Do we buy or sell something that has a high failure rate, that has a very expensive price tag to repair, versus things that might be more reliable? Again, using AI to point to the data to ask questions. We're working with a automotive organization in Southeast Asia, 425 showrooms to sell cars. The automotive industry is up, down, all over the place. You see it in the news, tariffs or whatever it is, it impacts auto industry, people's sentiment on buying. But what we've been able to do for this organization 3.5 years ago was we changed the way they service their vehicles. If you've ever taken a car in for service, the first thing you do is you pull up. They meet you at the pull-up area. They ask you your name. They look at the mileage. They look at your license plate number. They pull up the information. It's a 20-minute process typically to get somebody into a car dealership, to get the information that need for service, to get the person out of the door. After we put in this automated system, which uses RFID tags that we get the customer's permission to be able to put on their car, the minute they drive into the service area, the RFID tag tells the service advisors who the person is, when they bought the car, the last time that they had it serviced, what they had it serviced for. We're using information off of the sensors that the cars have to tell us if there's an oil problem, if there's a little light that's lit up, the little yellow engine light. All that information enters the little iPads that we've enabled for AI to be able to assess the information, so that the minute the customer drives in, we can basically say, hello, Mrs. Jones. Great seeing you again. Thank you very much for being a wonderful customer for us for the last 15 years. We saw the last time you brought in. You're asking the questions really just to confirm what we believe. Their start to finish in and out the door nowadays is 90 seconds. Not 20 minutes, but 90 seconds to get that customer in, welcome them in, personally know that who they are, and then they can even go through and say, would you like us to drop you off at your Lenkey Road home? There's a vehicle sitting right outside. He knows your address. He'll be able to take you home. So in that 90 seconds takes the time for that person to exit their vehicle, walk to a customer service vehicle, and drop the person off without ever having to go through this whole process. And now, where do you want to go? And I mean, this customer, you have the information. We pull it up automatically at the time the person drives onto the lot. AI in operational logistics, you've seen this with like UPS and Federal Express of if they're going to deliver it, how to deliver it, stop by stop, right, left, and what have you. It's been great in the Federal Express, UPS, Amazon has this technology, but a lot of smaller organizations don't. This technology now with AI drops this down to any organization. Could be a person who's doing Uber Eats for deliveries, or it could be a small business that has their own delivery services. Is that through barcodes, RFIDs, global positioning, know exactly where things are to be able to route out the person. And it drastically reduces that time of driving back and forth and making a whole bunch of left turns on long signals. We're even going through and putting tags on cargo shipments because one of the big problems that we have right now are cargo ships get stuck in port, maybe a reroute at the in the Middle East, all different things that go on. We can tell exactly where those cargo containers are anywhere in the global environment. And we use AI from an operational logistics standpoint to say, yep, your cargo has been stuck in Los Angeles. It's going to be there for 3 extra weeks. And then we use AI to be able to determine how does that 3-week delay on this particular part going to impact your supply chain to manufacture goods to get it out the door. And all this stuff is the processing in AI is done literally in minutes. What used to take 3, 4 people sitting there for hours and hours to be able to crunch numbers. This is a real exciting area. It's called social media sentiment analysis, and it's using AI to scrape Twitter, TikTok, Baidu, Instagram, and it's identifying what are consumers chatting about your company, your brand, your product, your industry. And so now you know that if somebody's having a bad experience at one of your locations, that it raises it up as a little red dot that basically saying somebody said something bad about your company because they had a bad experience there. You can be proactive to be able to kind of address that. The dirty little secret in marketing is that for every bad thing somebody says, if AI says 3 good things, the bad thing goes away. And a lot of the big companies do that, where somebody says something bad, you retweet 3 good things, and also the bad thing goes lower down to the metrics. So you can make problems go away by using AI to your advantage to scrape all this social media information and raise that information back up. I think I got a couple more cases. Like this is the last case I have. And last one I have is using AI to be able to do assessment of health information. We're doing this for the New York, New Jersey health system. It used to be if you came in with a high fever, they'd swab your nose, they'd run through to be able to determine whether you're infected or not. But the process took 3 days to determine whether you were infected or not. After 3 days, you've already gone home, you've already gone to church, you've already infected your family. It was a huge problem that just because they swab your nose, they didn't solve the problem. We went through and turned that process into an AI model where we've swabbed the nose, put it onto a petri dish with a camera, and it can actually assess whether the person has infections on the bottom right-hand side there in green, 98.6% of the time accuracy. So we could determine whether the person has COVID, whether the person has or symptoms of the common cold, or if something like H1N1 comes out in Italy, as it did earlier this year, novel virus that had popped on through, we could determine we don't know what this is, but we are aware that CDC and WHO has informed us that there's a new virus outbreak, and we can start tracking it. Within 3 hours, we could determine you can go home, you just have the common cold, but you get to stay 4 days because you have something we've never seen before. We want to track it. So that's saving the New York, New Jersey health system $1.2 million a week in the way of having people come in, spread the virus, impacting hospital beds across the entire region. So something that AI has been able to do in 3 hours instead of 3 to 4 days. So the big value and the benefit of AI, and when a lot of people say, I don't see the value, I don't really know what AI can do for me, it's usually because they're chatting with documents. Summarize this document, write me an email, grab this Word document, create a content for me. And when I've been talking about some of these examples, what I'm really doing in the big shift is chatting with data. We've been collecting data for what, 5, 10, 20 years? We have all this information in our systems, databases, accounting systems, supply chain systems, or financial tracking system, or client management system. We have all this data, but there really hasn't been a good tool to chat with that to be able to identify the information. And so typically when organizations want to chat with the data, they use these fancy tools, Microsoft has this thing called Power BI or Tableau or Cognos or even a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. And we put this data inside these spreadsheets or these dashboard tools. Some IT person has created a script or goes through and creates these little dashboards. 2 to 3 weeks later, you have kind of like this dashboard setup. And that's the way we've been handling this data for the last probably decade or two. But what we started to do is we started to take information and turn it around using AI. Because the problem with dashboards are static. It's as good as what the developer created last week or last month or last year. If an executive has a question that's new or different, if the dashboard wasn't set up to be able to support tariffs or impacts from some kind of new policy, then the person who wrote the dashboard has to update it with this new thing that they have to be able to calculate. So there's time to create and time to focus. So all of the different vendors that are out there, whether it's Oracle or SAP or Microsoft or Salesforce, they're all creating these AI tools for their products. But the problem with it is that the tools are only for their products. So Salesforce AI tool just goes to Salesforce. SAP's ERP tool only goes to SAP. Oracle only goes to Oracle. Microsoft only goes to Microsoft. And so we're limited in the visibility. While they're great tools, most enterprises we work with have a lot of different products, a lot of different data systems. And so the AI add-ons, you end up having to buy these very expensive add-ons for one product, only providing insight with that product. But most of us as executives, we want to be able to look at marketing, sales, inventory, production, profitability, HR expenses, cost of operations. There's a whole bunch of stuff we want to look at. That's probably in at least 2 or 3 systems, even for the smallest organization. And large enterprises, we typically see that they're in 9, 10, 20 different systems. So this is what we developed. We developed a process that allows us to take all of these different systems, doesn't matter what, we currently connect to 5,500 different systems. We feed all that information to an AI chatbot that we can ask questions of. So I can ask everything from supply information to changes to what have you. I got a handful of slides here, but what always works better is I actually just show you how this works. So let me go through and switch over to this screen here and click to share. So what I have here is basically a chat bot, just like your ChatGPT chatbot, just like Google search. But what I'm connecting it to are to the 9 systems on the left-hand side. Employee data, sales in 2024, sales in 2025, payroll information, raw materials, products on order, product and inventory, marketing expenses, and marketing for 2024 and 2025. This happens to be for a car manufacturer. You'll know who it is within the first few questions here. So what were sales in 2024? So the system goes in and looks at information. It's obviously going to look at the 2024 database, $124 million. How many cars were sold in that year? And it goes out, same thing, very simple stuff, $124 million, 3,999 cars. Then I could do compare sales in 2024 Q1 to Q1 2025. So now I'm going to look at 2 different databases, or 2024 and 2025. And I can see that 2024 is lower, or 2024 is higher, 2024 dropped by 8.6%. Give me an idea of why sales were down in the first half of 2025 compared to 2024. So now I'm asking it do a comparison. And we knew that 2025 had slower sales. And so now it's going to go through and provide us some insight to basically say the first half of 2024 and 2025, we went from 48 million down to 29 million. We went from 1,500 cars sold to 900 cars sold. Fewer cars sold gives a kind of an analysis, potential reasons. Customer demand, inventory challenges, market pressures, and tariffs. And so what it's doing is it's providing us insight to stuff that's going on. We can look at information like in Q2 2025, who was the top salesperson? Sort by high to low. So now I can ask it information that's looking at not the vehicles, but I'm looking at salespeople. So I can see the salesperson people. what do we pay Christopher Gonzalez compared to his profitability in sales? And these are all fictitious names and stuff, so I'm not giving up Jason and Robert and Sandra's information. This is all fictitious names, but to data that's behind it that is actually active, real information. So Christopher earned $85,000 based on his sales. There was $10,060 in profitability, 11.83% of his annual salary. What cars are in inventory in SFO? So I can ask it a question specifically about location. So now I'm looking at another database, which is inventory, showroom database. So I can see the inventory that we have. I can see the models, the makes, the costs, manufactured, suggested retail price, the cost, WX models, the colors, all of that information. I'm bouncing around between at least 5 different databases. I went through the payroll, sales, inventory. I've gone through 6 databases to find this information just by asking questions. And I can ask question after question after question. We're doing the same thing on this in healthcare information. You have patients that are coming in. What are the top, cases that are people are coming in? Who in our hospital is taking up the most beds? What are the cases? So it could be a viral output. It could be because of weather and storms that caused injuries. It could have been because of a gunfight that was on. But you can start asking questions of your healthcare data. Who, what conditions, how long have they been there? Are they insured? Are they not insured? You could ask demographic background information, all this information. It's querying these databases, but not just one, not just 3, but everything we pointed out to the different environments that exist out there. So there's a lot of information that we can go through and gather from this. We point to, let's see, back to that one here. I think that's the one. Where I kind of zip down to, so for this information, as we start chatting with the data, we can also have it use AI smarts. So I can basically ask it question around sales. I can basically say, if I'm looking for a specific make and model of car, show me the ones that are closest to San Francisco. I don't have to train it to be able to determine that the distance from San Francisco to the San Francisco warehouse is closest, and Los Angeles is next, and then Denver is next after that, and Memphis is after that. Is AI is smart enough to know locations. It's able to calculate distances. So when we ask it questions, I don't need somebody to program distance, locations, costs, margins. I could do forecasting based on our current sales that we've had over the last 3 months. Forecast out what the next 6 months are going to look like. Do I have enough inventory? Do I have enough raw goods? That ship that got stuck at the port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, how is that going to impact my ability to scale? Again, all the questions that us business people ask of our data. Last slide here. So to build this thing, literally takes us 3 to 4 weeks. Some people think, well, that takes 6 weeks, 9 weeks, a year to be able to do. We actually build out these prototype of these models within a month. Kickoff meeting, we start building this whole AI environment, which is all cloud-based. So you don't have to buy anything. You don't have to go through and license anything. It basically is just built in the cloud. 1 to 2 weeks, this thing is working, where we start pointing it into sales systems, accounting systems, to manufacturing systems. And within the 3rd week, you're asking questions. And you got a week to sit and play with it and be able to ask questions. And what we do is we try to figure out, okay, what kind of questions are you asking of it? And do we have the right data systems? Because we find a lot of times after we set the initial system up, somebody wants to be able to look at other information that wasn't set up. Great. Let's find out when it fails to answer a question because the data didn't exist. We can also find out whether AI did not come up with a good answer. And on every one of those questions, you would have noticed there was a thumbs up, thumbs down, that you could basically say, that was a bad answer. I know that information is not correct, or you didn't find me the right answer. And you thumbs down it, and then you're able to go through and put down, this is not accurate, or I think this data is wrong. So that way, within that first 3 weeks, we can start figuring out, okay, why isn't this working the way you expected? Maybe I don't have the right data systems plugged in or what have you. And then effectively the 4th week is fine tune, get this thing going, and determine how this is brought out to production. So AI systems usually is this mystery. that it's going to cost me a lot of money. It's going to take a long time to be able to go through Envision, and we have all this process that has to be put into place. So I'm going to throw that out there. That is really the nut of the topic that we have to be able to share out AI in the real world, move from talking with a document, summarizing the document, have the thing create me an email, to talk with the thing that matters to all of us executives, which is our data, financial data, manufacturing data, patient data, client data, all the information that we determine that we want to be able to communicate with. And within 3-4 weeks, this thing is operational. So I'm going to stop there. I know that Matthew has a process to be able to break us out, have a chat, and we'll come back. And I welcome after the breakout sessions to bring your questions, because this is one of those things that nobody else is doing this. Most people will say, oh, you go get a big accounting firm, they'll spend 6 months to envision this. We're building these things, 200 companies so far, 24 industries. This is live stuff, and it's fun to be able to work with. So look forward to chatting with y'all on some of the stuff upcoming. Over to you, Matthew.
Chatting with us all about chatting with our data. Rand, thank you so much. You just went through, I think, a use case for everybody. So that was jam-packed. And yeah, exactly. What we talked about at the beginning. Let's take some of these ideas. We're gonna head into our breakout sessions, and our lead-in question is, what use case comes to mind for chatting with your data? So we will all look forward to hearing your examples when we reconvene in about an hour. Paul, can you take us away?
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you again, Rand and Matthew. And before we go into breakout rooms, first of all, just to help everybody know each other as quickly as possible, if you haven't already, go to the 3 dots in the top of your video screen for your picture. Click on rename and put your company name after your name, so we can know who you're dealing with. When you get in there, if for whatever reason you don't have a moderator, somebody just step up. I think most should have. And we're going to do really brief introductions, just 30 seconds max, of who you are, what you guys do. And then whatever use cases you're either using successfully or not working or would like to, what use case might you put on the table for the conversation if we have the time. We won't have the time to deal with every single one. We'll be coming back to the main lobby here, main room here, about 3:20 Pacific time. So 20 minutes after the hour. Spend a few minutes just kind of summarizing. And then for those of you who actually want to and can stay after this official scheduled meeting is over, about 3:30 Pacific time, Rand and Matthew and I will be staying behind for all those who want to continue the conversation. And Rand has generally offered, and it should be fun to actually kind of help think through some of them. So each group should just decide if there's one use case that you want to put on the table at 3:30 and somebody's staying behind. Figure that out, and I'll see you. I'm going to open up the rooms, and if you're not assigned one yet, I'll get you assigned pretty quickly. All right.